module equals to the brain and hormones. Human nature is vital to understand psychotherapy, so understanding the functioning of the brain becomes important. The brain has been evolved to survive and sustain. It has passed through a lot of evolutionary stages. The brain is a complex organ with a lot of layers and perhaps the most amazing form of evolution as well. The brain is part of the CNS or the central nervous system. The other part of the system is the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, PNS, is composed of spinal nerves that branch out from the spinal cord and cranial nerves that branch out from the brain. The brain is an organ made up of nerve tissues contained in our skull. It majorly plays an important role in all other systems of a human body. Let's have a look at the magic organ and its components, which will help us to understand psychotherapy better. The brain is composed of the cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem. The cerebrum, it is the largest component of the brain and mainly responsible to perform higher functions. It is composed of the left and right hemispheres. Its functions include initiation and coordination of movement, judgment, reasoning, problem vision, touch, temperature, vision, hearing and learning. The cerebellum, located under the cerebrum, the cerebellum coordinates muscle functions, maintains posture and balance and equilibrium. The brainstem, it is the middle part of the brain and includes medulla, pons and the midbrain. The brainstem is basically the relay center which relays information from the cerebrum and cerebellum to the spinal cord. Basic activities like breathing, heart rate, digestion are performed through the brainstem. Lobes of the brain. The cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres, left and right. Corpus callosum joins both of these hemispheres and transmits messages between them. Both the hemispheres control different functions. The right part plays an important role in creative aspects like music, spatial ability, and various artistic skills. It also has major role in negative emotions like anxiety, whereas the left hemisphere relates to positive emotions. It is also known to control comprehension and speech. Language and logic is also related to the left hemisphere. Each of these hemispheres comprises of broad regions called lobes. Every lobe has a different function to play. Frontal lobe, they are in the front part of the brain, located just behind the forehead. They are responsible for personality, judgment, speech and intelligence traits. Memories and thinking are some functions done by the frontal lobe. Parietal lobe sits at the top part of our head. It is responsible to process sensory information passed on to it by the opposite side. It interprets language and sense of touch, temperature, vision, and hearing, and also perceives visual information. Occipital lobe, this lobe is located at the back of our head and mainly interprets visual data. Both the lobes are known to function individually as well. It has two systems. The vision of perception helps to recognize objects and form a database, and the vision in action helps to interact with moving objects. Basically, this system focuses on object orientation. Temporal lobe sits in either side behind the ear. They coordinate visual memory and verbal memory and interpret emotions. Another important function of this lobe is hearing, organizing and sequencing. Other parts of the brain are midbrain, it controls eye movement and process visual information. Medulla, it is the lowest part of the brain, majorly controls the heart and the lungs. Breathing and sneezing functions are controlled through medulla oblongata. Pons, it is the largest part of the brainstem and works as connector between different parts of the brain. Some cranial nerves find their origin here. Facial movements and transmitting sensory information are the functions of the pons. Thalamus, it acts as a relay station for the signals coming into the brain. Thalamus is involved in consciousness and memories. Epithalamus, it connects limbic system to other parts of the brain. It controls and balances feelings and motives. It is also involved in respect of memory. Hypothalamus, it helps to maintain homeostasis, that is, maintaining balance of all bodily functions. Hypothalamus also secretes hormones and regulates body temperature. It also maintains physiological cycles. Brain plasticity. Neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain that enables to rewire itself. Throughout the life of a human, brain continuously changes as the person gains new experience. Brain is a very adaptive organ, and studies conclude that the brain has a healing power. In traumatic situations, it is known that several people have made unexpected recoveries. Scientists now deduce that neuroplasticity is the reason for these unprecedented cases. In response to extrinsic or intrinsic stimuli, nervous systems are known to reorganize structures, functions or connections. It could be either functional plasticity or structural plasticity. In functional plasticity, the brain can change the functions of a damaged area and move it to other parts of the brain. In structural plasticity, the brain changes its physical structure through learning new things. When somebody tries to learn a new technique making repeated efforts, the nervous forms new neural connections and optimize the existing neural connections. Plasticity is a fundamental property of the nervous system. Earlier the brain was considered unchangeable. Researchers believed that brain develops only in infancy and childhood. Modern research has shown that the brain is capable of creating neural pathways and altering existing ones in order to adapt new experiences and learn new information. The nervous system is a complex network of nerves and specialized cells called neurons that relays information to and from the brain and spinal cord to the rest parts of the body. The nervous system comprises of central nervous system, CNS, and peripheral nervous system, PNS. CNS consists of the brain and the spinal cord, and PNS consists mainly of nerves enclosed in axons that connect CNS to other parts of the body. The CNS and PNS are the structures that make up the nervous system. Functionally, there are two components that make up the nervous system. The voluntary component, also called somatic, and the involuntary part, also known as autonomic. The somatic nervous system connects the brain and the spinal cord with muscles and sensory receptors in the skin, and the autonomic nervous system regulates those functions that work without consciousness. The body doesn't need to make any conscious effort in performing these functions. Breathing, blood pressure and certain body processes are regulated by the autonomic system. Neurons are the basic unit of the nervous system. Neurons are specialized conductor cells that receives and transmits electrochemical signals or impulses. It comprises of a cell body and arms that conducts signal from one part of the body to another. The three parts of a neuron are: cell body, it is the command center of the cell with a nucleus also called soma. Dendrites, several long fiber-like structures arise from the cell body that appears like cables. Dendrites are highly branched with the exception of sensory neuron. They carry signals to the cell body. Axon, it is also called nerve fiber and is used to transmit signals to different neurons. There are three types of neurons, namely motor, sensory and interneuron. Motor neuron, it directs messages from the central nervous system to other parts of the body. Sensory neuron, it gathers information from senses and directs them to the central nervous system. Interneuron, it acts as messenger between both the motor and sensory neuron as they do not communicate directly. Neurons are specialized cells and are capable of sending and receiving signals rapidly. Electrochemical waves or signals, also known as action potentials, travel along the axons to the junction, which causes the chemicals called neurotransmitters to be released to other neurons, called synapses. The cell that receives the synaptic signal may show some behavior as per the neurotransmitter. A cell could be excited, inhibited or otherwise modulated. Neural circuits are formed when the neurons form complex patterns of dynamical activity. The synapses can be either chemical or electrical. Electrical synapses are known to pass ions directly between neurons, but chemical synapses are more common and more versatile than the former. At a chemical synapse, the sender cell is called presynaptic and the receiver cell is known as postsynaptic. Both regions are capable of carrying out the signaling process. The presynaptic area contains tiny spherical vessels known as synaptic vesicle, which are packed with neurotransmitter chemicals. The synaptic vesicles rupture and the neurotransmitters spill out of the synaptic gap and attach themselves to the dendrites on the opposing end. Glial cells, or simply glia, are other specialized cells that exist along with the neurons. They provide structural and metabolic support. Earlier, it was believed that they do not have any role in transmitting signals, but recent studies show otherwise, and glial cells may be actively participating in the transmission of signals. As electrical impulses travel along the axons, the neurotransmitter glutamate travels along the axon membrane, after which the content is released into the brain. The glutamate is believed to guide the cells to produce fatty layers around the axons, called myelin. They ensure rapid transmission of signals. Hormones. The endocrine system is made up of glands and organs found throughout the body. They are accountable to secrete hormones that make the cells responsive to each other. Hormones are the chemicals the endocrine system uses to send messages to organs and tissue throughout the body. Once released into the bloodstream, they travel to their target organ or tissue. Receptors that recognize and react to the hormone. They are vital to every body part in performing regular functions. If your endocrine system is not well, you may develop a number of health concerns ranging from development to normal day-to-day activities. This makes the endocrine system important in psychology and psychotherapy. The endocrine system is made up of the pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid glands, adrenal glands, pancreas, ovaries, in females, and testicles, in males, according to the Mayo Clinic. Hypothalamus, located in the midbrain, can be considered as a gland, though mostly it is not recognized as one. It is responsible to control the pituitary gland through secretion of various hormones. Also, it is responsible in regulating various bodily functions like sleep-wake cycle, regulating temperature and controlling appetite. Pituitary gland is also known as endocrine's master gland, is responsible in controlling other glands and tells them when and what hormones to secrete. It is regulated by the hypothalamus. It is responsible in making many important hormones like growth and reproduction hormones. Sometimes, hormone levels can be too high or too low. When this happens, it can have a number of effects on your health. The signs and symptoms depend on the hormone that's out of balance. The brain and the body is connected to the brain deeply. When any injury occurs to the brain, the body performs changes to itself and there can be drastic changes in the individual's personality. For example, if a person experiences deep injuries to the forehead, the frontal lobe may be affected. This could affect the individual's personality in unimaginable ways. And may behave inappropriately and not know himself. The brain tries to interpret the situation accordingly but may have issues developing rationality. The brain tries to rewire itself as a result and make changes as per the damage sustained. There has been numerous debates as to why we are the way we are. It could be various factors at work behind every unique personality. It could be genetics or life experience. There are ongoing studies as to the quantum of genes contribute into making a person. No two person going through same life conditions and experience will have the same perception of the world. Known as the map of the world, every person's perception of the world is unique. The physical reality is much different than what we perceive as an individual. As a therapist, one must consider these differences when understanding the client's issues. Responses to stimuli are mostly based on past experiences, and thus the signal detection theory helps us to understand the difference between various stimuli in our environment. Stimuli can be anything from sound waves, light waves, pain sensation, to the sense of smell and taste. These help us in perceiving the world as we see it. It is not only a case of making responses but also making judgments. Sensory stimulation helps the sense organs communicate to the brain and fine-tune the object in question. Mainly we focus upon the sudden changes, but in our peripheral vision, we also keep track of the background. Sound waves travel into our ears where they transform into fluid waves. These waves then send impulses to the auditory parts of the brain, and then the brain initiates processing of this data. Scent. Sense of smell is the most primitive sense. The membrane within the nose receives a chemical impact through the odor and sends impulses to the olfactory bulb. The olfactory bulb then decodes the information accordingly. The sense of smell is very important as it is also related to the sense of taste. Touch. Our skin contains numerous nerve endings that enables us to feel the sensation of cold or warm, or if there is any pressure on the skin. It is extremely important for survival. Pain. Pain is very dynamic. Though no one likes to experience it, it acts as our defense system and helps us perceive potential danger. Everyone has a different tolerance of pain as per the circumstances. There can be physiological as well as social factor acting upon it. In psychotherapy, the response to pain is very important. It can help to understand the person's psychological state. The conscious mind is a simplified version of the world as we see it. The brain constantly makes efforts to discard useless information and make space for new information. When one pays attention to only a specific task, the brain chooses to eliminate the distractions by fading them out of our consciousness. It also helps in increasing our response rate and helps us to perceive better organization as we look around the world. It is obvious that a lot of information goes into our brain on a daily basis. So much useless information may cause chaos, and therefore to create an order, the brain has to assume what is useless and what is worthless. The brain categorizes information on the basis of colors or textures. It can be done in numerous ways as per the individual's traits. The brain creates maps or database to store important information. It uses meaningful data to create distinction. Many a times when the brain misses out on some data, it may itself try to fill in the gaps to understand the bigger picture. The brain functions on contexts and may draw upon memories, personality or motivation to do so. The brain also tries to understand and make rationales as to why a certain action was performed, so the brain tries to reason out every action. However, it can lead to complicated issues. As such, a therapist must try to understand the client's map of the world when trying to obtain a solution.